All right, everyone, I'm going to show you how to modify the Super Overdrive in 2 stages. The first stage is what I call the Super Duper Mod, where we give it more gain, but smoother gain, a better audio fidelity, and a better bass response. The second stage is making the pedal true bypass. All right, for the Super Duper Mod, we're going to need 2 of these capacitors. This is 1 UF, 2 of these capacitors. This is 0.1 UF, a 620K resistor, a 2.4K resistor, and a red LED. All right, to make this video go faster, I already unsoldered all the parts we're going to be taking out with a solder sucker, but I will go one step at a time. All right, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove C7, that capacitor right there, the black capacitor above the op amp, and C10 right here is the small capacitor right next to that big one. All right, that should look blank like that. C7 blank, C10 blank. And we're going to put our 1 UF film capacitors in those spots. I actually like to lay my capacitors flat. That makes sure they're out of the way when we put the pedal back together. All right, it should look like that so far. All right, the next thing we're going to remove are these 2 capacitors right here. I believe that's C2 and C3. These are always glued in place for some reason, but I take a screwdriver and I just pry them up. I've done dozens of these mods and this has always been okay. Again, we're going to remove those 2 bottom capacitors right there. All right, it should look like that. Kind of hard to see with the glue in the way, but we're going to replace those 2 capacitors with our 0.1 UF capacitors. All right, I have them in place. On the bottom capacitor, I like to pull the legs a little long and put the capacitor further down here. That way, the second capacitor and third capacitor, or however you want to number it, lays nice and flat like that. All right, it should look like that so far. All right, and the next thing we're going to remove is R2 and R6. Again, all this is glued in place, so these are a little tricky to get out. All right, on the bottom for R2, we're going to put our 620K resistor. And on the top, we're going to put our 2.4K resistor. like that. Okay, now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to remove this third diode right here. If you notice, all the diodes are facing the same direction. The positive on top and the negatives on the bottom. We're going to be removing the one on the far right. All right, we're going to replace that with our red LED. Now, when you're looking at an LED, the long stem is the positive and the short stem is the negative. Now, before we said all the positives were on top and all the negatives were on the bottom. So we're going to put the long stem in the top hole and the short stem on the bottom hole. Should look like that. All right, there it is. That is the Super Duper Mod ready to go. The next stage is going to be true bypass. All right, this is a stock Super Overdrive, and this is the one we just modified. I gave it a new paint job and new knobs. All the settings are going to be the same, except I have the volume backed off a little bit on the Super Duper Overdrive. All right, this is the second stage. We're going to make this pedal true bypass. Now, to wire it up true bypass is actually pretty easy. Making room for the true bypass switch is the hard part. So, I'm going to show you that part first. First thing I'm going to do is clip the black and purple wires that were on the switch. And I'm going to remove the switch by pressing in the side clips. All right, we take out the old switch, take the battery clip out, disassemble the whole pedal, take that out. This is the hard part. We have to make room for the true bypass switch to go in there. So what I did was I took a step bit, I drilled 2 large holes there, And then I used a file to square up all the edges. Now the location for the true bypass switch is kind of critical. What I like to do is take the washer and place it as close as I can to the edge there and mark a center hole, which I've already done. The hole is right in between the O and the V right there. Here's a stock one. Right between the O and V, there's a little space. That's where I drilled a small pilot hole. As a guide, we're going to put a 1/2 inch hole right there. So if you can open up this area and drill a 1/2 inch hole right there precisely, you cannot put it any higher or else the jack, the switch will hit the jacks in the inside. So it has to be put right there. If you can do that, open it up, the rest is going to be easy. All right, once you have your hole drilled and cut out, we're going to concentrate on the circuit now. Again, this is the easy part now. I already unsoldered the parts that I need to take off, but we're going to take off Q2, which is this transistor right here, and we're going to take off Q1, which is this transistor right here. Now, we're going to leave Q2 completely blank like that, but on Q1, we're going to put a jumper wire on the outer lugs like that. All right, and on the battery clip, we're going to go ahead and remove that entirely. The black wire off the jack and the red wire off the power supply jack. All right, next we're going to prep our true bypass switch. I have a jumper wire soldered on the outer bottom lugs, a brown wire soldered to the right center lug, a white wire soldered to the left center lug. I also have a jumper from the bottom center lug to the top right lug, but I don't have the top right lug soldered yet. I only have the bottom lug soldered. We're going to solder the top one later. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to remove the purple wire from the board. All right, and then we're going to remove the brown wire from the jack. We're going to take that brown wire that we took off the jack, and we're going to put it on the top right lug. All right, on the top right lug like that with our previous jumper that was unsoldered. We're going to go ahead and solder that up. All right, it should look like that. And then the brown wire, the center lug brown wire, is going to go on the jack where we took the original brown wire off. Now we're going to do the same thing to the other jack. We're going to take the white wire off, and we're going to put that on the left top lug of the true bypass switch like that. All right, it should look like that. And with the center white wire, we're going to put that on the jack where we took off the original white wire. Okay, technically speaking, this is all true bypass now, but now we need to make the light turn on and off when we engage the pedal. So what we're going to do is get this black wire and solder it to the center lug of our true bypass switch like that. All right, next we're going to take off this green wire and we're going to attach the purple wire we took off to that green wire. And we're going to attach the other side of that purple wire to the top center lug right there. All right, there it is. All we have to do is assemble it and test it out. You see how close the jack is to the switch. That's why you can't drill that switch any higher than that. All right, let's test it out. All right, everyone, thanks for watching my video. This is the pedal we just modified. I gave it a new paint job, new knobs. I changed the location of the light. I also moved the clipping diode up here so it will blink when you play the guitar. This one was the stock pedal, but it's also been modified. I'm going to be doing a follow-up video where I play various riffs with various settings.